Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Umar Khalid. But today is the 3rd of July 2025, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with Pakistan's successful domestic and diplomatic offensive. Let's talk about the diplomatic international offensive that has reaped the benefits for Pakistan, whether it be the post-Pahalgam false flag operation, whether it be in the way of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and the way the whole delegation went to different countries and were extremely successful in highlighting Pakistan's true narrative of the facts and figures that happened, or whether it be at the Quad summit which recently ended and where the 4 important countries including India did not take any stance that was pro-India or that could implicate Pakistan, because they knew exactly what the truth in all of this situation was. And this, of course, is a huge diplomatic victory as far as Pakistan is concerned. Then the presidency of the United Nations Security Council that Pakistan has now undertaken for the month of July is a huge diplomatic victory for Pakistan as well, because of the fact that India has tried whatever it could at the IMF, at the FATF, at the United Nations, at the Quad to put Pakistan in a bad light, but it has not succeeded. Even its media, its so-called jingoistic media, has not succeeded. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Gaza ceasefire and the reports of the Gaza ceasefire that are gaining momentum, but the fact is that Hamas has yet to respond effectively as to whether it is all right with the conditionalities, or whether it will proceed with this ceasefire that is being mediated by US President Donald Trump. Israel, apparently, as per US President, has said that it agrees to the 60-day ceasefire. But knowing Israel, we don't know what it's going to do, how it's going to maneuver, what's happening or going to happen during this 60 days and post 60 days. But the fact is the number of casualties, the number of butcheries by Israel continues unabated every single day, of Palestinians that are hapless, that are helpless, that even go for food and then are killed mercilessly by the Israeli forces, even when they are going for aid, necessary aid, food, water, medicine and whatnot, which is in huge decline in all of Palestine, especially Gaza. The fact is also that a lot of hue and cries being made across the world, whether it be Turkey, whether it be the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, on the decision that might be taken by the Israeli government and the Israeli politicians as far as annexing the occupied West Bank is concerned. This and more is going to be part of our second story. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Hasina Wajih. Yes, the same Hasina Wajih who fled to India following the uprising. And now there is a court in Bangladesh that has sentenced her to 6 months in prison for contempt of court by the country's International Crimes Tribunal. What will happen? Whether will she go back and, of course, undergo the 6-month imprisonment or not is anybody's guess. But the fact is that I don't think she will go back or return to Bangladesh, looking at the current state of affairs. And of course, India would not want her, because she, at the end of the day, has been completely backed by India. Then we are going to talk about extreme heat conditions that are creating havoc across the world. We yesterday talked about what is happening across Europe, and now more and more such evidences are coming from across the world. It's not just Europe that is grappling the intense heat, it is other parts of the world as well. And of course, because of that, a lot of reports say that this unsurvivable heat or humidity that goes along with that heat. We are also seeing this in Islamabad, in Pakistan, different areas of Pakistan as well. It could lead to mass migration in order to escape death. Will that happen? Will that not happen? Is something that we'll see with time. But the fact is that this unsurpassable changes as far as the heat situation across the world is because of climate change. Finally, we are going to talk about the planet Mars. Ladies and gentlemen, we've talked many a times in the past also, and there's a lot of speculation in Mars whether there was human life or any kind of life that existed at any time in the past. But this is what the scientists recently say. They say all the ingredients that are necessary to sustain life are present on Mars, except for one key ingredient, and that is liquid water. Whether that proves that life did exist at some time, yes. Whether that proves that life can exist, bit question mark. Let's begin with our first segment, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns Pakistan's successful diplomatic offensive across the world. Post the Quad Summit, post Pakistan's presidency of the United Nations Security Council, post the whole delegation that went to the US, to the UK, to Brussels, post our Field Marshal Asim Munir Saab, our Chief of the Army Staff, who went to the US, had a very successful meeting with the US President Donald Trump that exceeded 1.5 hours and more. I mean, I could go on and on as far as the list is concerned. And the whole image of Pakistan, that has changed in the eyes of the world, especially the countries that matter. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. Our second guest will join us a bit later in the show, but we've got in the studios Wajih Abbasi, who is a foreign affairs analyst. Thank you very much, Wajih Saab, to have joined us. Wajih Saab, we will discuss different aspects of Pakistan's diplomatic success, but before that, let's watch this short report that was prepared by my team to highlight many of the successes.
Pakistan's major diplomacy is gaining ground globally. The joint condemnation from the Quad Alliance was firm in tone, demanding swift justice for the victims of the Pahalgam attack. However, the statement refrained from naming Pakistan or assigning any blame is a clear indication that global powers are steering away from politicized accusations. This comes as a blow to India's ongoing efforts to internationalize its allegation against Pakistan. Once again, New Delhi's attempt to link Islamabad to terrorism, even within Quad, has failed miserably to gain traction. Instead, the international community appears committed to due process, evidence-based assessment and multilateral norms, not unilateral blame games. Pakistan's balanced foreign policy is yielding results, reflected in the neutral stance taken by key global stakeholders. In contrast, India's aggressive diplomacy is facing increasing resistance on global forums. This episode also highlights how Pakistan is being recognized as a responsible, rational actor in global affairs, while India's credibility is being quietly but steadily questioned.
You were just watching this report that just encapsulates some of the successes that Pakistan has had recently. Wajih Saab, you've seen the report just like I did, but let's talk about the recent events that have happened. The Quad meeting that happened, a statement that comes, but nowhere is it mentioned that Pakistan is the perpetrator, which India has been highlighting, pom-pomming on its media, and I was still watching on different Indian media portals. They are still highlighting the same false jingoism that is trying to put the blame on Pakistan as being behind the Pahalgam false flag operation, being behind other such incidents as well. But now the Quad meeting happens and we see that there is no mention of Pakistan as far as Quad is, but there are other countries that are mentioned in the report. Pakistan is not mentioned. How does the Quad's refusal to name Pakistan in its joint statement, in your point of view, sir, reflect the success of Pakistan's diplomatic offensive post Pahalgam?
You see, from the start on April 22, when this incident happened, and India outrightly blamed Pakistan on that. From that way onwards, international community in fact realized from the day one that India is just concocting a story. Because you remember when after this incident, when in Delhi they held a briefing for the foreign diplomats based in New Delhi. In that meeting also, that was the Indian stance was questioned. India was asked to give evidence on its stance that Pakistan was involved, and India had no evidence to that. And on that, there were reports that many diplomats said that without evidence, we can't accept that. And then India has a series of instances where they concocted stories and they concocted lies and based their other stances on disinformation, whether it was on Pahalgam and whether it was on their attacks in Pakistan and the Pakistan's response and droning at Indian aircrafts and you know their attacks on Pakistan also. So all these were lies, and these lies were accepted, realized by the international community, and that was reflected during this meeting and Quad meetings also. Where you know these four countries, they were this alliance was created to counterbalance China in the Indo-Pacific. An Indo-Pacific term was, coined just for that matter also. There was no Indo-Pacific actually. But anyway, they coined, they created this alliance to counter China. And India was thought to be something that was big enough to counterbalance China. But on May 6 and 7 and then on 10, the world realized that India doesn't in fact counterbalance Pakistan even.
And nor is it trustworthy. That is the whole question mark.
Yeah.
Trust is something that any big country would look towards, but that is what India is in lack of. Muhammad Umar joins us all the way from the US. Umar, thank you very much to have joined us. The global rejection of India's false projection perspective on Pakistan, how does it signify the credibility of Pakistan's positioning in the international community?
Umar, it confirms that Pakistan's reputation as a responsible state is gaining recognition. As you can see from the rejection of including Pakistan's name, and as well as using the language that India pushes forward, which they've done throughout other diplomatic engagements in the past, the world is no longer accepting allegations without evidence. We are living in a post-truth era of global diplomacy, and you're seeing that taking place right now. They are no longer reacting to the emotional response that the global community used to in the past, whether it was India or any other aggressor throughout the world. Now the world is closely looking at and looking for evidence, which Pakistan has been really good at providing.
Also been joined by G.R. Baloch. He's a former ambassador. Baloch Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Baloch Sahab, in your point of view, how can Pakistan leverage its recent diplomatic successes in order to isolate India's anti-Pakistan propaganda efforts that India continues to this date, even as we speak?
Thank you, Omar. Sabji, this one actually attempt by India is not something new. It goes back many decades. False flag has been part of its diplomatic tools. But now the latest one, Pahalgam, was actually in a way the lowest ebb that any state can come down to. That first, there is the blood of 26 innocent people, and then you try to capitalize on it, and then on the top of it, you just wage a war on your nuclear neighbor. Where is the rationality? One assumes that in these very difficult times, very risky times, when every country has one or the other potential, you don't wage wars like that. If there was an issue, you had to take up first with the neighbor, with the word, with the evidence, and that is what India did not give it. Now, it's false narrative, it's narrative based on fiction, on accusations, and it's actually motivated to defame Pakistan. And it's claimed that they have been able to isolate Pakistan has already fallen flat before that, the kind of engagement that Pakistan has experienced. But I think what has happened that, sometimes, the consequences are unintended. So the unintended consequence of the Indian aggression was that Pakistan was established as a militarily competent country. Its pilots, its army, and most of all, the strategic thinker of its leaders, political leadership as well as the military leadership was established. And Pakistan, alhamdulillah, today stands as the middle power globally who has to be heard, whose leadership is credible, whose system is credible. And that is the reason that India is all frustrated. They sent about 7 delegations to all over the small and big countries. But wherever they went, they got back nothing but kind of rejection of their false narrative. Now, coming to your question, yes, we should build on it because we have also emerged as a factor of stability in the region. So I think we have also played, as some of the reports they suggest, a positive role in bringing in some ceasefire with Iran and US and Israel. We have been able to play some role in bringing down the temperature in South Asia. We have been able to use our diplomatic effort at the Pakistan mission to the UN. Very vociferously, we have fought the case of the Palestinians and other rest of the world where people are being oppressed and suppressed by the so-called hegemons that they want to rewrite the rules of the world order by their whims, by their diktat. And Pakistan, as a principled country, is standing along with the other same part of the world, same leaders of the world, same state of the world. And it is assumed that all states, when they acquire the status of a state, would be rational actors. And Pakistan has, alhamdulillah, proved that. And India, to the contrary, stands in contrast to that very profiling of a state. A state now India is, which believes in division, which believes in conflict, which believes in discrimination against its own people, on communalism, on faith. In fact, I'm sure you know that India is at the lowest edge where there's a religious freedom. So all these things.
So true. That is so true, Balot Sahab. The fact is that India and Pakistan are poles apart when it comes to their diplomatic strategies or even their internal strategies on how to strengthen their nations. India is hell-bent on creating rifts amongst its communities, whereas Pakistan is trying to bridge all gaps. I totally understand where you're coming from. Kindly stay with us. Now, I'd like to understand Wajih Abbasi Sahab. The Jia Balot Sahab points towards rewriting rules. Do you feel now that the world is getting more and more cognizant of the fact that India has been taking part in such nefarious activities regionally, internationally, and has been maligning Pakistan based on falsehoods? And of course, now there is a whole perception of Pakistan as a responsible state. How can Pakistan play on that to further improve its image, to further strengthen its image in the international community of nations?
You know, this May 6 to 10 war has increased Pakistan's stature in the world, and it is being given a lot more respect and a lot more space than it was previously given. You would see it by the visits of the Army Chief, Field Marshal Samani to US and meeting with the
delegation by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari led by
the Bhutto Zardari, Bilawal Bhutto's delegation was well taken, and now the air chief is there. And then Pakistan became the president of the UN Security Council and all that. Now, all these things are giving Pakistan a very good chance to promote its stance in the world. And at the same time, you know, the Indian problem is that they have been doing the terrorist work and actively hiring people.
But you know, the fact is, Wajih Sahab, India has been doing this terrorist, involving itself in terrorist activities since a very long time. It continues to do that, but it has been exposed nationally, regionally, and internationally. We have to go to a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Umar, I'm coming towards you. You know, on the one hand, we see Pakistan's diplomatic success on different fronts with our Field Marshal's visit, with the delegation led by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, with Pakistan as the president of the United Nations Security Council, with Pakistan's name not being mentioned at Quad as had been pushed by India. And then the voices that are emanating from within India, whether it be the opposition, whether it be the sane voices, whether it even be some serious Indian journalists that are highlighting the flaws within the Indian government and of course the truth behind the Indian so-called diplomacy and diplomatic efforts. Do you feel on the one hand we see Pakistan garnering support and leadership roles at the UN. On the other hand, we see the increase as far as pointing fingers on India's attitude, jingoism, warmongering, and of course falsehoods is concerned. Do you feel that even the Indian voices are now rejecting the flawed Indian foreign policy?
Absolutely, Omar. The burden of proof is no longer being bypassed, whether it's the international community, whether it's local media in India, whether it's politicians in India. One thing that I keep hearing when I talk to people in the policy circles in Washington, D.C. and other capitals around the world is they keep commending Pakistan for the restraint and composure that Pakistan showed post-Pahalgam, not just during the unprovoked attacks and following what happened May 6th, 7th, and then eventually what happened on May 12th. They keep underscoring how mature Pakistan was, contrasting us to the sharply contrasting us with India's knee-jerk blame game that they started. Not only did they start the knee-jerk blame game, but the way they emotionally reached out to world capitals to force them to use and adopt language against Pakistan without any proof, I think turned many, many people off. And if you see even in the Indian media, especially print media, they've started to question what was the purpose. They still don't have any responsible actors. They haven't brought forward any responsible actors. There has been no update on the investigation. And I think all of that is underscoring how well the international community now views Pakistan. And they're not just viewing Pakistan as a responsible state now, but recognizing that for far too long, we have used Pakistan as a scapegoat, and it's no longer going to happen until unless they see proof.
All right, Umar, stay with us because we've got lots more to discuss with you. I'll now go to my second story, and that concerns what is happening in Gaza. On the one hand, I have reports of this ceasefire, the 60-day ceasefire that is being mediated by the US, and the US president says Israel has accepted this, but Hamas has yet to accept it. Hamas has its reservations, or Palestine has its reservations, because of the fact that Israel has not been a dependable party. Let's put it, at the least. It has been butchering their citizens left, right and center on one pretext or the other. My first question regarding this will go to G.R. Baloch Saab, who is patiently online. Baloch Saab, Francesca Albanese, who is a United Nations expert, gives a report to the United Nations Human Rights Council and talks about the 85,000-ton explosive devastation in Palestine and how the arms industry is benefiting in the billions, if not the trillions, through this supply, and how it is using these arms as a test example for Palestine using Israel. They say it has 6 times the power of Hiroshima, the explosive that have been used so far. I'd like your take on that.
This is the blackest chapter in the human history. This is, I refuse to call it a war, because war also has some rules. This is a naked daylight genocide. It was designed like this, it has been executed like that, and probably seems to me that they want to continue to perpetuate this genocide in the daylight in front of the entire international community, whose conscience seems to have gone to sleep. The worst story, and literally I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is not an exaggeration. When I read it, I literally had tears in my eyes when I heard that there's a doctor who's, not that he was only killed, whole family was targeted in their apartment. So they are killing the angels of life. The doctors and nurses are called the angels of life. I can never forget the story when I think about 6 of the paramedics were buried inside along with their ambulance. My God, when will the world wake up? When will the world conscious wake up? When will the world say this is wrong? Enough is enough. I think now, if any humanity is left in the international system, they have to stop this slaughter by fascists and by killer Netanyahu and his coterie of people who were there. Israel has to be stopped. Otherwise, they are setting such a precedent. In fact, I was writing today something in which I said, okay, now the world is literally in an age of savagery. There's just no limit. There's no value to the human life. In fact, even worse than animal life. How can you imagine people being starved to death, and when they go for the food, they are being shot at. They don't have water. They don't have medicine. Each and every hospital has been bombed. Each and every doctor, paramedic has been killed. I mean, what else? What else do the world want? I think Netanyahu.
Forget that, Ya Baloch Saab, children are being killed. Even this latest incident on a kid's birthday party that was targeted by the Israelis, and the number of children that were killed by it. I mean, they have gone to a low that we have not seen in decades, if not in centuries. I'll come to you now, Wajih Abbasi Saab. Wajih Abbasi Saab, Baloch talks about the age of savagery. He says that the world consciousness or conscience has died. Can it be revived? Especially when it comes to Palestine, will we continue to see the children being butchered, the women being butchered, the water and food not being given in abundant quantity?
I think the generally realization of the Israeli crimes in Gaza and Palestine are being more recognized in the world. You know, the European Union and the different European countries and the Latin American countries and other countries have been supporting the Palestinian state, and they are doing more than it was being done previously. But you know, in international relations, they say there are no principles. There is no morality. It's only the state interests. And as long as the United States is with Israel, and this being basically a unipolar world in which the big powers are not standing up to the United States, so they are just allowing the United States to have its way, and the United States fully supporting Israel, as we have seen even in Israel-Iran war. Then there is more chance of these issues being swept under the carpet and Israel having its way. But at the same time, I would personally think that you know, there is this proposal, recent proposal of this 60-day ceasefire. That sort of thing should be a permanent ceasefire, not 60-day ceasefire. You know, in 1945, at the end of the Second World War, when the United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the nuclear weapons, the Japanese nation was still in a position to fight the United States for probably many months, if not years. They have been doing that in the small islands in the Pacific. They have been resisting the United States. But the Japanese government or the emperor decided that the price for that is too big, and instead of allowing its nation to be butchered, they just surrendered to the United States, and that was quite a humiliation for any country. That's a humiliation, but they saved their nation, and now today their nation is at the top of the world.
But you know, no, I'll cut you short. I think the repercussions of these could be dreadful, to say the least. Already Israel has captured such a huge chunk of land that belongs to the Palestinians. They want the Palestinians to exit Gaza and to go to any neighborhood country. In fact, they're even talking to other countries as well, so that they can be peacefully relocated in those areas. Then the annexation of the occupied West Bank, that is also being talked about and decided upon as we speak. The fact is that if there is no resistance, then what will Israel do? It will occupy the entire Palestine, and then it will tell the people in Palestine to leave. So what option do the people in Palestine have? There is no option, unfortunately, Wajih Saab. I understand where you're coming from, but Palestine's case is very specific and very different from the US-Japan issue in the Second World War. Yes, please.
Yeah. Actually, that was one of the proposals to relocation, but that is not on the table right now, probably. And on the table right now is the disarming of Hamas. and taking over of that Gaza area by some other
countries.
countries.
Yes.
So that might be an international force, the UN force, or some force of some Arab countries or the European countries that may take over the security of the Gaza Strip. Even the the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, Mahmoud Abbas government, can take over that area, and there should be an international agreement. And the Israelis,
and there should be an international agreement, Wajih Sahab, that should be acceptable and that should be implemented.
Yes.
And it's not that it should be implemented for a day or two, but it should be implemented for all times to come. That is something that we will look forward to. Umar, I'll come to you. Amnesty talks about two things. It talks about Israel using starvation as a tool of war, and secondly, it talks about Israeli authorities weaponizing aid. We all know about what happened with this aid organization that has been using giving the aid as a pretext to kill innocent Palestinians. Has the world really gone that numb? Have we gone to that low of lows as far as humanity is concerned?
Omar, unfortunately, we have seen evidence upon evidence of hundreds of trucks sitting at the border while children are dying. This is complicity at a global level. Blocking food should not be accepted as a security tactic. It is a war crime. And fortunately for us, there are international criminal courts. There are warrants out for Israeli government's leadership, including Netanyahu, but they have to be in a country where these warrants can be executed, and they can grab these world leaders and bring them to the global courts for justice. As far as amnesties, they've clearly highlighted that this starvation is not an unintended consequence of, reactive what Israel is doing. They're using this as a state policy. And we've seen this throughout history, Umar. This is called collective punishment. Native Americans faced this when Europeans came to North America, but we haven't seen collective punishment on this industrial scale. Starving children, that is genocide by hunger, and there is no other name for it. And this is not just about, the state of Israel. This is the Zionism mindset. This is the Zionism political ideology that has been out there since the 19th century. And they will not stop at the West Bank. They will not stop at Gaza. I think other countries in the neighborhood understand this, and they know this because they have launched attacks against Lebanon, against Jordan, against countries that have historically in modern history have supported Israel. And, so this is, I don't know what to call it. This is complicity at a global scale, which should be unacceptable by every human being on this planet.
Right, we'll shift gears a little bit because this, this is an unending discussion because we don't know where all of this is going as far as Palestine is concerned. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Umar Hasina Wajih has been sentenced to 6 months in a contempt case at the country's International Criminal Tribunal, otherwise known as the ICT. This ICT was created by Hasina Wajih herself. How do you see this sentencing, the 6-month sentencing by a tribunal created by Hasina Wajih as an example of shifting power dynamics and the use of legal instruments for political accountability of a former Prime Minister in Bangladesh?
Omar, it's striking the reversal of fortune. You see this, not just in this case, but it's happened throughout history with other governments. The tribunal that was established under her leadership to try war crimes is now prosecuting her. This actually highlights how institutions can outlive their founders and be repurposed under new regimes. Whether this signals genuine legal accountability or simply the use of law for political score settling, as you mentioned earlier in your introduction of this program, depends on your perspective. But the optics point to a dramatic shift in power, and it also underscores how fragile institutional independence can be, especially when the judiciary is caught in the crossfire of political transitions, as we've seen in other similar cases, unfortunately, in our region of the world.
Very much, Umar, to have joined us all the way from the US. Hope to see you very, very soon on other topics. That was Muhammad Umar, Foreign Affairs Analyst, talking to us about two important topics, that is Palestine and, of course, Bangladesh, and Hasina Wajih, who's been sentenced to 6 months in a contempt case. GR Balot Saab, I'd like to understand the trial of Hasina Wajih. Of course, she won't go to Bangladesh, but if she does, do you see this as a legitimate judicial process or a politically motivated move by the interim government? And if it's a justified movement, do you feel we'll see more of that in Bangladesh under the current setup?
Yeah, I think as long as far as this Hasina Wajid is concerned, she has there's evidence in the world of her suppression, extrajudicial killing, and her suppressive regime and corrupt regime for over a decade plus. But I don't think I would like really we should be commenting on the judicial system. I think if the judiciary has found it to have committed this crime and they have given their verdict, I think people should respect, and we as a friend of Bangladesh respect their institutions, state institutions, which are now honored and recognized by the people of Bangladesh. So I would rather defer to whatever decisions the court of Bangladesh have given today against that lady. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much, Jia Balot Saab, former ambassador, to have joined us, to have given us your minute point on three important stories today. Last question to you, and that, of course, concerns Hasina Wajih Sahib as well. But, of course, we have a Nobel laureate, Muhammad Yunus, who is leading the interim government in Bangladesh. How important is his role going to be in the coming weeks and months in this shifting geopolitical and geostrategic scenario?
I think that is already you have seen the glimpses of that. Bangladesh, Pakistan and China's meetings, and then China's Bangladesh meetings also. Because Bangladesh, during Hasina Wajih's time, Bangladesh had become a sort of something subservient to India, which the people of Bangladesh, even before 1947, they always stood against the dominance of the Hindu majoritarianism in India, and so that's why they have all that struggle. So the people of Bangladesh never liked the predominance of India in their domestic and foreign policies, and that was what the Hasina Wajih was doing, and that was the reaction of the people of Bangladesh against her policies. There are internal policy also, and there are pro-India policies also. And so the new Bangladesh government is trying to take this country out of the Indian dominance.
And take it forward in an era where it can be a neutral country, not take sides, but develop itself economically and politically and strategically otherwise. Thank you very much, Wajih Abbasi Saab, to have joined us, foreign affairs expert. Wajih Abbasi Saab joining us for three important segments. Last two stories very quickly. First concerns the extreme heat that is getting worse across the world, and we are seeing different examples of that. A lot of scientists are also saying whether this in the long term is going to lead to migrations of people, of animals from one area to the other area. We are also already seeing the effects of that in different parts of Europe. 40 degrees Celsius plus temperatures in all the different countries of Europe. The countries that had never seen that much of heat in many years, and we of course are witnessing the effects of climate change that are being more and more rampant, and the responsibility of international organizations like COP, like the UN, becomes even more apparent under these circumstances, to evolve a strategy that could reduce the effects of climate change, that could reduce the increase in temperatures. The UN has talked about it, COP has talked about it, before it's way too late for them to make any changes for this earth to breathe properly, and the people as well. Last story concerns Mars, no longer the Earth, but we're going to another planet. Mars has always had a kind of fascination for many scientists, because they thought first it was the moon, then it was Mars and Pluto as well. They thought there was that at some point of time there might have been some kind of life present on that remote planet. But the latest findings say that many of the conditionalities on the planet are such that could be the necessary ingredients for life on that planet, but unfortunately it lacks one key ingredient for life to sustain itself, and that is liquid water. And liquid water, we all know, H2O, how important this is for sustainability of life, whether it be animal or plant life. It might have existed at some time in the past, maybe a couple of million years ago, but at this moment all the other ingredients are not there, but this one is not there. Maybe we'll be able to do that through some new technology in the future as well. Who knows what the future has in store for us. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.